we have a tube here with the outside color in the front and the inside color in the back. I've already done my setup round, so you can see I have 2 rounds in the white and 1 round in the blue in my knit columns. So I will be doing the Kitchener stitch with the blue yarn. So you'll cut a tail that is 4 times the circumference of your cowl. Make sure it's not what's on the needles. You want the actual cowl so you get the full circumference. Now, in order to do the Kitchener, you need to have 2 sets of stitches. So we want to separate the front stitches from the back stitches. So I'll take a second needle. It can be the same size or smaller, and it doesn't have to be a 16-inch, it can be longer, that's fine. So what we'll do is we will slip a front stitch to one needle and a back stitch to the other needle. Front on one, back on another. And we will do this all the way around so that we have our stitches separated and set up to do the Kitchener stitch. Get a little rhythm going. So you can see I'm separating the inside from the outside of the cowl. So I will finish that and we'll be right back. Okay, so we'll just do these last few. You get a bit of a rhythm going after a while. Slip, slip, slip. So we get to the end and we will have all of the blue stitches on one needle and all of the white stitches on another. So I've pulled my inner needle through and slid the stitches up to the tip of the needle so they are ready to be worked. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put a locking stitch marker on the first stitch on each needle. We're going to want these again at the end of the round, and this will help us to be able to find them. Now we take that very long tail we made and thread it onto a yarn needle. When I have a tail this long, I like to fold it in half so that I don't have to pull my arm halfway across the room every time I do a stitch. So now we're ready to go. Now, if you've done Kitchener flat, you may recall that you do a setup that involves working just the first stitch on each needle. You don't do that in the round though. So our setup for Kitchener in the round is to work into the first stitch knitwise and the second stitch purlwise, and I take them both off the needle. Again, if you're familiar with Kitchener, that might look a little different for you. And then on the back needle, the first stitch purlwise and the second stitch knitwise, both off the needle. So that's the only time we're going to be working 2 stitches off the needle. From now on, going around, we're always going to be working into the last stitch that we did and the first one on the needle. And the way we do that is we always start at the outside of the work, so either way in front or all the way in back. We start at the outside of the work and we go in and then back out into the next stitch and take it off the needle. Now from the back, we go into the center and then back out and off. Again, in and back out. In and back out. And we always make sure that you're going to be moving the yarn back and forth aside the tips. You don't ever want to go over the needle. It's always back and forth this way. And then it's a little bit of tidying might be necessary. You want to make sure that these stitches are the same size as your other stitches. I find it easier with this method of letting both the stitches off to make that happen. So we go into this first one here, come back out and off. And after the first few, it's easy to just sort of snug it up and see it and look at it rather than having one left on the needle and trying to make that work out. So then we go into this one here and back out, and you snug it up so that the size looks the same. So I'm going to continue around and I will see you on the other side. Okay, so I've reached the point where I have 1 stitch left on each needle. I'll do one more here towards the back, and then front and off. And then on the back side, towards the middle, and then back to the outside and off. That stitch is just loose because it was the last white stitch and all we have is tail. Now to do this last one, this was the first stitch that we put on the marker. So this would be how it would be sitting on the needle. So we go down into this space and back out to the front. And then on the back, down into this space and back out to the front. Then we can remove our markers and weave in our ends. Okay, so I've tidied up the tension on those last few stitches. To weave in these ends, what I first want to do is the color I was working with. That first half of the stitch came from over here, so it's real wonky. So I'm just going to sort of recreate what that would have been by tucking this right in here and just carrying it over a few stitches. So that completes that stitch. And then to do the weaving, I just go back in and carry it a little further along the row. Since it's double knitting, it just hides on the inside. And I'll do something similar for the white. This would go, the path of the yarn would go like this. And so I'll just take that and bring it right under here. Kind of like duplicate stitch if you've done that before. And then again, just weave it in along that channel. And that's it. And then just snip those ends.